One Zambia, one nation. This is Zanis News. I am your presenter, Henry Himonde. Let's take a look at the headlines in our news. Government effects fish ban. 20 suspects in the Katete saga denied bail. Stakeholders bemoan HIV and AIDS negative impact on society. And let Malukutira put to rest. The news in detail with our first item from Western Province, where government has today, December 1st, 2022, effected the fish ban to last for the next 3 months. And the Department of Fisheries in Nalolo District says no grace period will be given for this year's fish ban. Sifue Mwangala now reports.
Each year on 1st December, government enforces the fishing ban program in most water bodies around the country to allow various fish species to breed, thereby preserving their existence. And the Department of Fisheries in Nalolo District disclosed during a sensitization meeting held in Mukukutu area that this year, the 14 days grace period for dry fish will not be given.
This time there are no issues of grace period because most of the people are talking of 14 days for dry fish. That is non-existent. There's no law that allows the dry fish to go up to maybe somewhere 14th December. So when we close, everything is closed.
And Namalia village headman Joseph Muwina has welcomed government's move and further called on government to allocate more resources to the Department of Fisheries in order for them to monitor the fishing activities during the ban.
Urge everyone, every fisherman, to stop fishing during this period so that we give time for our fish to breed. We also want to urge the government, since our fishery department has got no resources and no transport for patrols. So we ask the government to come in to provide transport for them to have their job easy to patrol.
The residents also called on fishermen and fishmongers to observe the fishing ban.
Time has come to stop fishing. Let's avoid, understand what it means when it comes to fishing. We should use some other ways of living now, rather than fishing only.
The fishing ban that has been effected today, 1st December 2022, will be lifted on 1st March 2023. Sifue Mwangala for Zanis News in Mukukutu area of Nalolo District, Western Province.
And in Northern Province, the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock Permanent Secretary Annie Songolo has appealed to research organizations to invest and research on addressing the challenges faced in the aquaculture sector. Ms. Songolo says government is working towards operationalizing aqua parks to promote fish technologies, processing and reduce trade imbalances. Helen Boalia reports from Kasama.
It's a meeting that has attracted various stakeholders in the aquaculture subsector from Zambia, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. The Piloting Inclusive Business and Entrepreneurial Models for Smallholder Fish Farmers and Poor Value Chain Actors, which was held in Kasama, is looking at ways of improving the aquaculture subsector. The meeting, which was sponsored by GIZ, also attracted research organizations in the sector, such as World Fish.
We have finally trained the farmers in fish production and management to ensure that aquaculture becomes a profitable venture for them. As World Fish, we believe that our local farmers have the capacity to contribute to increasing fish production in both Zambia and Malawi through the use of right technologies and quality imports.
Fisheries and Livestock Permanent Secretary Anna Songolo officiated at the meeting.
The government is working on operationalizing aquaculture parks to promote fish technologies, processing, and reduce trade imbalances. Government may, in some instances, collaborate with diverse stakeholders, including the private sector, to actualize this dream.
The team later visited Kasakalabwe Multipurpose Cooperative site in Kasama, which received support from World Fish.
Kasakalabwe is also doing the extension service in order to train our small-scale farmers about the climate change, better management practices, and other issues related to aquaculture and its importance.
Earlier, Fisheries and Livestock Permanent Secretary and her team paid Dekete Siko on Northern Province Permanent Secretary Bernard Mpondo.
With what you are doing, will be able to be self-sustained. This is an important sector which needs support. Us in the north, we are not used to eating meat. We are used to eating fish. Yeah. We love fish more than meat.
Helen Bwalia for Zanis in Kasama, Northern Province.
In Eastern Province, the Katete Magistrate Court has denied bail to 20 people charged with causing malicious damage to property, riotous behavior, and assaulting police officers. The court has since committed the matter to the High Court for onward trial. Last week, police apprehended 20 suspects that were alleged to have been involved in the brutal injury of 9 police officers and the setting up of a blaze of a police vehicle worth 68,000 United States dollars. Let's join Hope Walia with the rest of the details.
They have appeared in court to hear their fate if they'll get bail. These are the 20 accused persons facing charges of assaulting 9 police officers, malicious damage to property, and arson. When they appeared in court on Tuesday, the magistrate informed them that they were before the court, charged with 22 counts, 18 of them of assaulting police officers, causing grievous bodily harm, assaulting another person, malicious damage to property, burning a police vehicle, and riotous behavior. When the charges were read on Tuesday, the lawyer to the accused applied for bail, an application to which the state objected, and the magistrate set the next day, Wednesday, for ruling. However, when the matter came for ruling yesterday, Magistrate Mary Musongole denied the accused bail and informed them that their case will be heard in the High Court. This is because the new Act number 12 of 2022 provides that any criminal case that has juveniles charged together with adults must be heard in the High Court. For now, the 4 juveniles and 16 adults remain detained in custody until the time they will appear in the High Court in Chipata. The 20 are being represented by Counsel Joseph Chirwa of Fair Jury and Company, a Lusaka-based legal firm. Hope Walia, Katete District, Eastern Province.
Hope Walia there with that report. Now, Vice President Mtalena Lumango says there is need to build resilience of economies in the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA member countries. Mrs. Nalumango says economies in the COMESA region and the world over are facing the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, hence the need to work towards building resilience. The Vice President notes that these developments that caused pressure on physical and exchange rates around the world, thereby posing a risk of reversing economic gains which regional economic blocs such as COMESA have made. She was speaking in Lusaka during the 43rd COMESA Council of Ministers, whose theme is building resilience through strategic digital economic integration. Meanwhile, COMESA General Secretary Mulenga Kapwepwe says the regional body has learned a lot of lessons from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which ravaged the world in the last 2 years.
Going forward, there will be need for the region to prioritize and focus on key areas that contribute to economic growth, including trade and transit facilitation and implementation of interventions that promote the establishment of a regional, integrated, diversified, and competitive production capacity anchored on agriculture, industry, and the services sectors. Prioritization should also be based on value addition, diversification, innovation, and common regional standards, or with due consideration to protection of our environment. Additionally, these efforts must be implemented within the context of inclusiveness, participation, and sustainability to ensure that all sections of the society, including women, youth, and the vulnerable, are supported to have access and control over resources that have a clearly visible impact on human development.
Infrastructure development is one of the key priorities for COMESA agenda, deserving special attention. I'm glad to inform you that COMESA and the World Bank signed a financing agreement for the implementation of regional infrastructure finance facility projects. The project has 3 components. One is the project and infrastructure finance facility, where $325 million credit line is to provide long-term finance to project finance and infrastructure sub-projects that meet the development impact criteria and is being administered by the COMESA institution, which is the Trade and Development Bank. The second component is the COVID infrastructure sector SME response, where $75 million is being administered again by the Trade and Development Bank. And the third is the technical assistance of $25 million to COMESA and TDB that will be administered to support capacity building in our member states.
We now have a roundup of World AIDS Day commemorations from around the country. We begin with the Copperbelt province. The Zambia Correctional Service has disclosed that out of a population of 25,000 inmates in various correctional facilities across the country, 3,650 inmates are receiving antiretroviral therapy. This was revealed during the 2022 World AIDS Day commemoration held at Kansenji Correctional Facility in Ndola. We have more in the following report.
On December 1st every year, the world at large observes the World AIDS Day. And in Ndola, the Correctional Service celebrated the day at Kansenji Correctional Facility and was characterized by various performances from inmates. Zambia Correctional Service Deputy Commissioner Tony Nkunga was at hand to grace the occasion and called for concerted efforts in bridging the gaps.
We have close to 25,000 inmates housed in our facilities. Of this number, 3,650 of them are receiving antiretroviral therapy. They are on ART.
The Ministry of Health and its cooperating partners outlines the statistics on HIV/AIDS in the Copperbelt province.
I think as a country we've made progress from the time we introduced treatment from 2002. So I feel this year's theme of Equalize It resonates very well with us as a ministry. I think looking at what it is focusing on, it is focusing on narrowing the inequalities that we have as a nation.
Copperbelt still remains one of the provinces with the highest HIV prevalence with 2020 ZDHS, indicating 15.4%. Copperbelt province currently stands at 87, 99, 95, implying 13% of 302,093 people expected to be living with HIV in the province, not knowing their status.
The inmates are thankful to government for the provision of treatment in correctional facilities.
Some of the healthy equipments, or should I say essentials, are expensive beyond our reach as inmates. But you've worked so tirelessly to ensure that we inmates who are unable to access the very essentials, we in fact get them at no fee. And for this, would love to say thank you so very much.
This year's World AIDS Day is being commemorated under the theme, Equalizing, Closing the Gap. Clara Kawimbe reporting for Zanis in Indol.
In Mchinga Province, Deputy Permanent Secretary Matthews Chilekwa says HIV and AIDS remains a source of concern, especially among teenagers in the province who are indulging in unprotected sexual activities. Reverend Chilekwa says the gap between the community prevention and care support group needs more financial support so that there is close-up in the spread of HIV and AIDS in communities. He says the pandemic gravely affects everyone, adding that premium should be placed on intensifying prevention interventions by increasing spending and social contracting through robust community sub-granting programs. And District Health Director in charge of Technical Services, Kennedy Kabuswe, has called on all stakeholders to work together in the fight against HIV and AIDS. Dr. Kabuswe says the fight should not only be left to the Ministry of Health alone, but requires collective response from cooperating partners.
Equalize, Closing the Gap is the theme for this year's World AIDS Day. In Chinsali District in Mchinga Province, the event was characterized by various activities which started with a march past coupled with various songs and dances. The event was graced by Mchinga Province Deputy Permanent Secretary, Reverend Matthews Chilekwa, who encouraged everyone to know their status.
HIV and AIDS remains a great source of concern in the delivery of socio-economic development agenda of this country as a cross-cutting issue. It should be therefore be countered with equally effective community development program that identifies with the needs. Outcomes of such development considerations inevitably lead to strong ownership.
Mchinga Province Public Health Specialist Dr. Daniel Sinkala spoke on behalf of Mchinga Provincial Office.
The province was actually awarded at national level as the best province in terms of actually tracing the people that are living with the HIV.
And speaking earlier in his welcoming remarks, Chinsali District Health Director Dr. Chalwe Kabuswe called for the involvement of all in the fight against HIV/AIDS.
This theme emphasizes the need of a clarion call to all stakeholders to take action and ensure that no one is left behind in the fight against HIV and AIDS.
Miriam Kwenda reporting for Zanis in Chinsali, Mchinga Province.
As we continue with the news, Northwestern Province Minister Robert Liefu says HIV and AIDS have continued to impact negatively on the social and economic development of the nation. Mr. Liefu says HIV and AIDS remains a source of concern in the delivery of social and economic agenda of the country. He said this in a speech read for him by Solwezi District Commissioner Tredson Mlofa during the commemoration of this year's World AIDS Day under the theme Equalize, Closing the Gaps. And Provincial Health Director Bushimbwe Tambatamba expressed concern over the high rate of HIV infections in women and adolescents in the province.
We are all in this together as the pandemic has not spread any country on earth, has not spared any country on earth. However, let me take this opportunity to assure members of the public that my Ministry of Health will continue to provide adequate preventive, curative, and palliative health services. One major policy decision we have taken to sustain services is the monthly dispensation and promotion of differentiated service delivery mechanisms to reduce patients' number to visits to health facilities for drug refurnishments.
I wanted to say that for the province, we are still considering the issue of HIV and AIDS as a very critical public health problem in the province because our current prevalence for HIV still stands at about 6.1%. This year, from January to date, we conducted over 100,000 tests for HIV for those that were eligible for testing, and we found that over 5,000 of these tests were positive for HIV, giving us a rough prevalence of about 5% of the tests that we did. We are still seeing that most of the people who are infected with HIV are those that are women. Because of the 5,000 that we tested, about 64% of these were women.
And Kasama District Commissioner Elizabeth Goma today led residents in commemorating the World AIDS Day with a call on all stakeholders to help bridge the gap in the fight against the disease. More in the following report.
Kasama District has joined the rest of the country in commemorating World AIDS Day, held under the theme Equalized and Domesticated, Closing the Gaps. Officiating at the commemoration in Kasama today, District Commissioner Elizabeth Goma says HIV/AIDS is a source of concern in the economic development agenda of the country.
The Enhanced Constituency Development Fund, the CDF, presents an opportunity to provide available domestic funding targeted at addressing the causes of HIV, in addition to supporting local initiatives to mitigate identified impacts.
Kasama Mayor Teresa Kolola emphasized the need to address inequalities in accessing HIV/AIDS services.
I wish to call on the government and every citizen of Kasama in particular to boldly continue addressing inequalities which are hindering progress in ending AIDS, and equalize access to critical HIV services, specifically for children, key populations, and their partners.
Acting District Health Director Richard Sewela gave an update on the statistics in the district.
As Kasama District Health Office, we are making strides to combat the pandemic in terms of the 390s that we have. In 2021, we were at 95%, and in 2022, this year, we are at 96%. We have got an increase of 1%. In terms of treatment, we were at 94% in 2021, and in 2022, we are at 95%.
Zambia added closing the gaps to this year's theme to emphasize against discrimination and ensure equal access to HIV/AIDS services. Ntazanga Mumba for Zanis in Kasama.
To Western Province now, where Provincial Permanent Secretary Simomo Akapelwa says government has put in place mechanisms to support community HIV and AIDS action groups to access funding in order to reduce vulnerabilities. Mr. Akapelwa says the Constituency Development Fund CDF is one of the avenues through which people living with HIV can get support to finance their community-led projects to improve the quality of their lives. Take a look at this report.
Western Province Permanent Secretary Akapelwa Simomo says government is resolved to ridding the country of corruption in its forms regardless of who is responsible for it. Mr. Simomo said this when he officiated at the launch of the campaign against corruption dubbed No Bribes But Fines campaign, held at Country Lodge in Mongo district of Western Province.
This is a very important event as it marks the beginning of an era where corruption shall no longer be condoned by our police, traffic officers, and road users alike. The UPND government of His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema is resolved to ridding the country of corruption in all its forms and regardless of who is responsible for it. As such, I must commend the Zambia Police, the Anti-Corruption Commission, and all the stakeholders who have contributed to making this anti-corruption intervention possible.
And Western Province Anti-Corruption Commission Regional Manager Gift Chivirenga had this to say.
The Commission recognizes and appreciates this demonstrated will to enhance transparency and uphold the rule of law amongst road users. One of our core mandates as a commission is to create public awareness on the dangers of corruption to prevent its occurrence before it happens in the first place. This event we are witnessing today is one of the proactive measures that the Commission is taking to prevent corruption in the road transport sector. Recognizing how traffic corruption has continued to compromise the safety of motorists and other road users, and its dangerous effects on the economy through loss of government revenue, the Commission has this year dedicated the month of November and December to conducting interventions in the road traffic sector, and we have dubbed this campaign the No Bribes But Fines campaign.
Meanwhile, Western Province Deputy Commissioner of Police Godfrey Mwanza said the Police High Command will distance itself from any police officer found in corrupt activities.
The Zambia Police Service continues to thrive on the excellency in executing its mandate, and as a result, this institutional aspiration cannot be attained without embracing a multi-sectorial approach. The Police High Command distances itself from police officers involved in all forms of bribery or corrupt practices, as it is aware of the negative impact and consequences of such vices.
Darlington Kabambe reporting in Mangu District, Western Province.
In Southern Province, Gikankata District Commissioner Timothy Chimpolyonga is happy that the area will resume the construction of structures that had stalled from 2017 due to lack of funding. Some of the structures earmarked for continuation of construction next year include the police station and the civic center.
This is Gikankata District Township, popularly known as Neganega Government Complex. The construction of the Neganega Government Complex commenced in 2013. However, construction works of this marvelous infrastructure stalled in 2017. And the announcement by the Director of Public Infrastructure at the Ministry of Infrastructure, Rural and Urban Development, Clive Khan, when he was visited by Gikankata Council Chairperson Conrad Ngoma, explained that the construction of Neganega Government Complex, which will resume next year, has cheered Gikankata District Commissioner Timothy Chimpolyonga.
The stalled projects, and you are aware, last time if you were following, the Minister of Finance in Parliament talked about completing these structures in the 2022-2023 budget. I'm positive that monies will be there because first of all, the contractors could not complete because one, we had that challenge of the court issue. Then second, it was money that government could not release. Then third now is that the contract, when it was done in 2013, the prices have shot up, and now most of the contractors this year were renegotiating for the new contracts. But I believe that those that are renegotiated are just waiting for the monies to be paid to them. Once the monies are released by the Ministry of Finance, then the works will be done. Because what is remaining is just very little. Yeah, just a small time.
And Gikankata District Commissioner Timothy Chimpolyonga has also disclosed that the vandalism which was going on at Neganega Government Complex has stopped. The first phase of the construction of Neganega Government Complex will include the construction of a civic center, administration block, post office and houses respectively. It is pleasing to note that finally the construction of the Neganega Government Complex in Gikankata District of Southern Province will commence next year. This infrastructure has gobbled colossal amount of money, and its completion will delight the people of Agrilian, Gikankata District of Southern Province. Zanis reports in Gikankata District.
And finally, government has described late former cabinet minister in the UNIP administration, Paul Malukutila as a humble and dedicated Zambian patriot who will always be remembered for his services. Minister of Lands and Natural Resources Elijah Mchima says the nation has lost a dedicated member of the pre-independence struggle. Mr. Malukutila, who was put to rest in Lusaka today at Memorial Park, died on Monday, November 28, 2022. Here is a report.
It was a solemn moment as mourners gathered at the Mary Immaculate Catholic Church to pay their last respect to former cabinet minister Paul Malukutila today. Father Sidney Musonda led the mourners into Mass and described the late former cabinet minister as a man who loved God and family even during the time of his ill health.
Mr. Malukutila wasn't just 70, meaning he didn't just gain the span of a human being according to the psalmist. Mr. Malukutila wasn't just 80, meaning he wasn't just strong, but even went 4 years above, meaning he was very strong. So according to the psalmist, he has accomplished what God asked him to do on earth. And that is why when we come here, even if we are mourning, we are in pain, we are not really mourning, but we are celebrating a life.
Minister of Lands and Natural Resources Elijah Mchima represented government and described the late Mr. Malukutila as a gallant son of the soil who dedicated his life to saving the nation.
The late Honorable Malukutila was an accomplished politician who dedicated his life to the services of the nation. It is worth noting that the generation of Honorable Malukutila played an instrumental role in the struggle for independence for our nation. Alongside his peers, they contributed to the laying a strong foundation for the development of this great nation. They put the interest of the nation before self and family to ensure that our country was free from colonial rule.
And the widow, Mrs. Indwina Malukutila, described her late husband as a man who was loving, tolerant, and forgiving.
You were a loving, tolerant, forgiving, and caring husband. You cared not only for your immediate family, but the entire Malukutila family tree as well as mine. Vamfumu ifwelelo twachula, bantu ichimuti chesu chauma, chaputuka, mwane, tuli twatotela infumulesa, pabumi wenu. Truly, your life was a blessing to countless people.
Former Vice President Nevas Mumba and former Bank of Zambia Governor Caleb Fundanga were among the mourners.
But I think he was very firm in the ministries where he worked. As you heard, his political life started long ago during the struggle, and then at independence he became a great leader in various fields other than being a cabinet minister. So he was somebody we used to look to. If you wanted, I personally used to meet him because in my capacity, sometimes I could attend some meetings at State House, and so I had a chance to meet him from that perspective also.
Thank you very much. The pillars of our country, and we are trying to continue to inform the nation that these people that secured our independence are as significant as our future. And if we don't celebrate them, tomorrow, those who come after us will not celebrate our efforts and contribution to this country. Zambia will not be what it is without people like the late that dedicated their lives and saved this country from the bottom of their hearts to give us the Zambia we have.
The late Mr. Malukutila was born on 15th July 1938 and died on Monday, 28th November 2022. He was put to rest today at Lusaka's Memorial Park. Audrey Kalenga, Zanis News, Lusaka.
That item brings us to the end of Zanis News, but before we go away, another look at the top stories in our news. Government has effected a fish ban. 20 suspects in Katete who allegedly attacked police officers have been denied bail. Stakeholders have bemoaned HIV and AIDS negative impact on society. And former minister in the UNIP government, Paul Malukutila, has been put to rest. Thank you so much for staying with us on Zanis News. On behalf of the entire news production crew, my name is Henry Himonde. Remember, we are one Zambia, one nation.